The council chamber buzzed with angry voices. Aliens of every shape and size filled the curved seats that surrounded the central platform. Some had scales that glowed blue in the dim light. Others had tentacles that waved in the air as they spoke. A few looked almost human, but their eyes were too large and their skin too pale. Ambassador Krell stood at the center of it all. His blue scales caught the light from the twin stars outside the massive windows. His voice was deep and full of anger. 3 cycles, he shouted, his clawed hands gripping the podium. 3 cycles of war, and still the humans do nothing. The other delegates nodded and made sounds of agreement. The Vorthon ambassador, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, stood up. "My people are dying," he said. "Entire planets burn. And where are the humans? Reading books?" All eyes turned to the observation deck. There, in a comfortable chair, near the tall windows, sat a human. He was middle-aged with brown hair and wore a simple blue uniform. A small name tag on his chest read, "Tom Blake, Earth Representative." Tom was reading a book. An actual paper book, which was strange in a galaxy where everyone used digital screens. He seemed completely focused on the pages in front of him. The angry voices in the chamber did not seem to bother him at all. "The War of 7 Suns destroys everything," Krell continued. "Trade routes are cut. Families are separated. Children cry for parents who will never come home, and the humans sit and read poetry." Tom looked up from his book. He had kind eyes and a gentle smile. "It's actually philosophy today," he said in a calm voice. "Ancient Earth wisdom about patience and understanding." The chamber fell silent. Every alien stared at the human. Some looked confused, others looked angry. A few looked like they wanted to throw something at him. The Nexus delegate, a creature that looked like a walking crystal, spoke next. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Ambassador Blake, surely you understand the seriousness of our situation? The Vorthon fleet grows stronger each day. They have weapons that can crack planets in half." Tom nodded politely. "Yes, I heard about that. Very impressive technology." "Impressive?" The Vorthon ambassador's forearms spread wide. "Our enemies speak of us as if we are monsters. They develop reality disruptors that can erase matter from existence. Also quite remarkable," Tom said. He marked his place in the book with a small piece of paper. "The level of scientific achievement required for such weapons is truly something to admire." Krell's scales turned a darker shade of blue, which meant he was getting angrier. "Admiral, with respect, your people have the largest merchant fleet in the galaxy. Your ships travel to every corner of known space. Your technology is advanced. Why do you refuse to help us?" Tom stood up slowly. He was not tall compared to most of the aliens, but something about the way he moved made others pay attention. "Help you do what exactly?" "Choose a side," Krell shouted. "The Vorthon Confederation or the Nexus Coalition. One of them will win this war. Your people could tip the balance." "And then what?" Tom asked. He walked down the steps from the observation deck to the main floor. "The winner takes control of the galaxy, rules over all the other species, decides who lives and who dies." The chamber was quiet again. Tom's footsteps echoed on the metal floor as he walked to the center of the room. "The Vorthons believe in strength through conquest," Tom said. "They want to unite the galaxy under their rule. The Nexus Coalition believes in progress through technology. They want to advance civilization by any means necessary. Both sides think they know what's best for everyone else." "One of them will win," the Crystal delegate said. "It is inevitable." Tom smiled. "Nothing is inevitable. My people learned that lesson long ago." "Your people are farmers and poets." Krell's voice cracked with frustration. "You grow crops and make art while the galaxy burns around you." "We do enjoy farming," Tom agreed. "There's something peaceful about working with growing things. Plants teach you patience. They show you that the best results come to those who wait for the right moment." The Vorthon ambassador's forearms crossed over his chest. "Patience will not stop plasma bombs from destroying our colonies, won't it?" Tom asked. He looked around the chamber at all the worried faces. "Tell me, how long has this war been going on?" 3 cycles, Krell said. "You know this. And in those 3 cycles, How much territory has changed hands? The aliens looked at each other. The crystal delegate spoke first. The Vorthans took the outer rim systems. The Nexus captured the mining worlds of Sector 7, added another delegate. The Vorthans destroyed the Nexus shipyards at Alpha Station. The Nexus wiped out the Vorthon fleet at Beta Crossing. Tom nodded as he listened. So both sides have won battles. Both sides have lost battles. The war goes back and forth, but neither side is actually winning. The Vorthons are preparing a new offensive, Krell said. Their planet cracker weapons will end this war. The Nexus has developed improved reality disruptors, the crystal delegate added. They will answer the Vorthon threat. So both sides are building bigger weapons, Tom said. And when they use these weapons, what happens to the planets caught in between? What happens to the civilians who just want to live their lives in peace? The chamber fell silent. Through the great windows, they could see the stars. Some of those stars had planets around them. Some of those planets had been destroyed in the war. Tom walked to the windows and looked out at the twin stars. My people have a saying, he said. When elephants fight, the grass gets trampled. What's an elephant? Asked a small, furry delegate. A very large animal from Earth, Tom explained. The point is, when powerful forces fight each other, the smaller, weaker things get hurt. Right now, the Vorthans and the Nexus are the elephants. Everyone else is the grass. Krell's scales turned bright blue with anger. So you will do nothing. You will let the galaxy tear itself apart. Tom turned back to face the chamber. I didn't say we would do nothing. I said we prefer to wait and see. Wait for what? The Vorthon ambassador demanded. For the right moment, Tom said simply. A new voice spoke from the chamber entrance. Ambassador Blake. A young alien with green skin and large eyes ran into the room. Emergency message from the front lines. The room fell silent. Tom walked calmly to receive the message. Pad. He read it slowly, then looked up at the worried faces around him. What is it? Krell asked. The Vorthon fleet has broken through Nexus defenses, Tom said. They're moving toward the core worlds. The Nexus is preparing to use their reality disruptors to stop them. Panic spread through the chamber. Delegates began talking all at once. Some called for immediate evacuation. Others demanded emergency sessions. A few began making plans to flee to the outer galaxy. In the middle of all this chaos, Tom walked back to his chair. He picked up his book and tucked it under his arm. Then, he gathered his small bag and started walking toward the exit. Where are you going? Krell called after him. Tom paused at the doorway. Home, he said. I have a garden that needs tending. The tomatoes should be ready for harvest soon. He walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of confused and frightened aliens. Through the windows, the twin stars continued to burn, and somewhere in the distance, fleets of warships moved toward what might be the final battle of the War of Seven Suns. But Tom Blake, representative of humanity, was going home to pick tomatoes. The other delegates stared at the empty doorway. None of them understood what they had just witnessed. They thought they were looking at a simple man who cared more about plants than politics. They were wrong, but they would not understand how wrong, until it was too late. New Terra looked like a peaceful dream. Rolling green hills stretched as far as the eye could see. Small towns dotted the landscape like tiny jewels. The air smelled of fresh grass and blooming flowers. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in gardens or walked to market. Captain Rex Morrison walked through the main street of New Terra City. It was not really a city by galactic standards. Most alien capitals had buildings that reached into the clouds and millions of people packed together. New Terra City had maybe 50,000 humans living in simple houses with front yards and back gardens. Rex stopped at a fruit stand. The owner, an old woman named Mary, smiled at him. Good morning, Captain. How are the apples today? Sweet. As always, Mary said, handing him a red apple. My grandson picked these this morning. Would you like some for your crew? That would be nice, Rex said. He bit into the apple. The juice was cool and refreshing. Any word from the outer settlements? All quiet, Mary said. The farmers are worried about the wheat, though. Too much rain last week. Rex nodded. This was how conversations went on New Terra. People talked about crops and weather and their children's school projects. No one mentioned the war that was tearing the galaxy apart. No one seemed worried about fleets of alien ships that could destroy entire planets. But Rex knew better. He finished his apple and walked to the end of the street. There, hidden behind a grove of oak trees, was a small building that looked like a research center. A sign on the front said New Terra Agricultural Institute. Anyone passing by would think it was a place where scientists studied better ways to grow food. Rex pressed his hand against a scanner hidden in the doorframe. The door opened with a soft sound. Inside, the building was much larger than it appeared. From outside, corridors stretched in all directions. The walls were made of metal, not wood. The lights were bright and clean. He took an elevator down 5 levels underground. When the doors opened, he stepped into a world that no alien had ever seen. Dr. Lisa Park stood in front of a massive screen, showing 3-dimensional images of atoms and molecules. Her team of 20 scientists worked at stations around the room. They wore simple clothes that made them look like farmers or teachers. But the equipment they used was more advanced than anything the Vorthons or Nexus had ever imagined. "Good morning, Rex," Lisa said without turning around. "How's the surface? World today?" "Peaceful as always," Rex said. "Mary's worried about her wheat." "The weather control system had a small problem last week," Lisa said. "We're still learning how to make rain patterns look natural." Rex walked over to look at the screen. The images showed structures so small that no alien scientist had ever detected them. "Any progress on the quantum manipulation project?" "See for yourself," Lisa said. She touched a control panel. On the screen, a single atom began to change. Its structure shifted and rearranged itself. In seconds, it became a completely different element. "We can now change the basic building blocks of matter," Lisa explained. "Turn iron into gold, carbon into diamond, hydrogen into helium. The possibilities are endless, and no one can detect it. The changes happen at a level so small that their instruments can't measure it," Lisa said. "To them, it looks like natural atomic decay or random molecular breakdown." Rex smiled. This was what the aliens didn't understand about humans. While they built bigger weapons and faster ships, humans learned to control the fundamental forces that held the universe together. "What about the monitoring project?" Rex asked. Lisa led him to another part of the laboratory. Here, dozens of screens showed images from across the galaxy. Vorthon fleets, Nexus stations, alien colonies, trade routes. Every major military movement was being watched and recorded. "Our survey ships have been busy," Lisa said. "They look like simple cargo vessels to anyone who scans them, but they're actually the most sophisticated monitoring platforms ever built." On one screen, Rex could see a Vorthon battleship. It looked powerful and frightening with weapons that could level a city. But the human instruments could see things the Vorthons couldn't. They could see the stress points in the ship's hull, the weaknesses in its armor, the exact frequency needed to disrupt its power systems. "The Vorthons think their ships are invincible," Lisa said. "They don't know that we've been studying every bolt and wire for the past 10 years. Another screen showed a Nexus research station. The aliens there worked on reality disruptors, weapons that could make matter simply stop existing. It was terrifying technology. But the human sensors could detect the quantum signatures that made the weapons work. "We know more about their reality disruptors than they do," Lisa said. "We know how to stop them, how to redirect them, even how to reverse them." Rex nodded. "What about Commander Jake?" "He's in orbit," Lisa said, "running a routine supply mission. High above New Terra, Commander." Jake Rivers stood on the bridge of the merchant ship, Peaceful Trader. To any alien scanner, it looked exactly like what its name suggested, a simple cargo vessel carrying food and manufactured goods between human colonies. The truth was very different. "Status report," Jake said to his crew of 12. "All systems, normal," said his first officer, Anna. She was young and looked like she belonged on a farm, not a starship. "The Vorthon fleet is 3 light-years away and moving fast." "The Nexus response fleet?" 2 light-years behind them," said his weapons officer Mike. He had been a school teacher before joining Jake's crew. Both sides are heading for a major battle. Jake looked at the main screen. It showed what appeared to be a simple star map with trade routes marked in green lines. But Jake and his crew could see much more. They could see the real positions of every ship in both fleets. They could monitor their communications, their weapon status, even the stress levels of their crews. "Begin Phase 1, Jake said quietly. Anna's fingers moved over her control panel. To any outside observer, the peaceful trader was doing nothing more than running a routine sensor sweep to check for navigation hazards. In reality, they were deploying the most sophisticated electronic warfare system ever created. Invisible signals reached out across space. They were so subtle that no alien technology could detect them, but they began to have effects on both fleets. On the Vorthon flagship, Admiral Gorak stared at his weapon display. "What's wrong with the targeting system?" he demanded. "Unknown. Sir," his weapons officer replied. "All systems show normal, but the targeting is off by 0.001 degrees. Fix it." "We're trying, sir, but we can't find the problem." On the Nexus command ship, Captain Blue 7 watched her navigation display with confusion. "Why are we drifting off course?" "The gravity sensors are showing minor fluctuations," her science officer reported. "Nothing dangerous, but it's affecting our heading. Compensate." "We are compensating, Captain, but the fluctuations keep changing." Neither fleet realized what was happening. The human signals were so advanced that they could affect individual circuits inside alien technology. A targeting computer would miscalculate by tiny amounts. A navigation system would detect gravity fields that weren't really there. A communication array would add small amounts of static to important messages. Each problem was minor. Each could be explained as normal equipment wear or random space phenomena. But together, they began to make both fleets less effective. "Phase 1 complete," Anna reported. "Both fleets are experiencing minor system difficulties." Jake nodded. "Begin Phase 2. Let's see how they handle some real problems." The peaceful trader continued its routine sensor sweep, but now the signals it sent out were stronger. They began to affect more critical systems. On Vorthon ships, power cores began running slightly less efficiently. On Nexus vessels, shield generators started consuming more energy than usual. Weapon systems developed minor timing problems. Life support systems began making strange noises. "Sir," Mike reported, "both fleets are starting to blame each other for the problems." Jake smiled. This was exactly what humans had expected. When things went wrong, the two sides always assumed their enemies were responsible. They never thought to look for a third party. "The beauty of this approach," Jake said to his crew, "is that we're not actually attacking anyone. We're just helping their technology work a little less well than usual." "Like putting sugar in a ground car's fuel tank," Anna said. "Exactly," Jake said. "The car still runs, but not very well, and the driver has no idea what's wrong." Far below on New Terra, people continued their peaceful lives. Children went to school. Adults worked in their gardens. Old people sat on porches and watched the sunset. But deep underground, Dr. Lisa Park and her team monitored every aspect of the galactic war. They knew the position of every ship, the status of every weapon, the plans of every commander, and in orbit, Commander Jake Rivers and his crew of merchants continued their routine supply mission, while secretly crippling two of the most powerful fleets in galactic history. The aliens thought humans were simple farmers and traders who cared only about crops and poetry. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Vorthon flagship Ironhammer shook as another explosion rocked its hull. Admiral Gorak gripped his command chair, his forearms spread wide for balance. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. "Damage report," Gorak shouted over the noise of alarms. "Hull breach on deck 7, his first officer replied. "The armor plating just cracked. No external impact, no weapon hit. It just fell apart on its own." Gorak's face darkened. This had been happening for hours. Systems failed for no reason. Metal developed stress fractures in the middle of battle. Weapons misfired at critical moments. It was as if the ship itself was betraying them. "Sir, the planet cracker is ready to fire," his weapons officer announced. Gorak looked at the main screen. The Nexus fleet hung in space before them, their crystal ships glowing with deadly energy. This was the moment he had been planning for months. The ultimate weapon that would end the war in one devastating blow. Target their command ship, Gorak ordered. Full power. The planet cracker charged up with a sound like thunder. Energy levels climbed higher and higher. The weapon was designed to split entire worlds in half. One Nexus ship would be destroyed so completely that nothing would remain. Firing, the weapons officer shouted. The massive beam of energy shot out from the iron hammer. But something was wrong. The beam wobbled slightly, its perfect focus disrupted by microscopic variations in the power flow. Instead of hitting the Nexus command ship directly, it grazed the edge of their formation. The beam still caused terrible damage. 3 Nexus ships were destroyed instantly, but their command ship survived. And now they were angry. Nexus ships are charging their reality disruptors, the sensor officer reported. Multiple targets locked on our position. On the Nexus command ship Crystal Mind, Captain Blue 7 watched her weapon displays with cold satisfaction. The Vorthan attack had failed, just barely. Now it was time to show them the true power of advanced science. All ships prepare reality disruptors, she commanded. We will erase the Vorthan fleet from existence. Her science officer looked worried. Captain, the disruptors are showing power fluctuations. The quantum field generators are not operating at full efficiency. How much power do we have? 87%, Captain. Still more than enough to destroy their entire fleet. Blue 7 nodded. The reality disruptors were the most feared weapons in the galaxy. They could make matter simply stop existing, erasing targets from the universe itself. Even at reduced power, they would turn the Vorthan ships into empty space. Fire all disruptors. Beams of impossible energy reached out from the Nexus ships. They touched 3 Vorthan vessels and began to unmake them at the atomic level. But the weapons were not working properly. Instead of completely erasing the ships, they only destroyed parts of them. Sections of hull vanished, leaving the rest of the ships broken but not gone. What happened? Blue 7 demanded. Why are our ships still partially intact? Unknown, Captain. The disruptors fired, but the effect was not complete. Both fleets stared at each other across the void. The Vorthans had failed to destroy the Nexus command ship. The Nexus had failed to erase the Vorthan fleet. Each side blamed the other for using some kind of defensive technology they didn't understand. Back on the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Tom sat in his quarters. The station had been converted into a refugee center as the war reached its final stage. Alien families crowded, the corridors carrying whatever possessions they could save from the fighting. Tom's quarters were simple and peaceful. He had a small desk, a comfortable chair, and a shelf full of books. On the windowsill, he kept 3 small potted plants that he watered every morning. Today, he was brewing tea using leaves he had grown himself. A soft knock came at his door. "Come in," Tom said. Ambassador Krell entered, looking exhausted. His blue scales had faded to a dull gray, and his usual anger was replaced by desperation. "Tom," Krell said, "I need to ask you something. As one sentient being to another." "Of course," Tom said, pouring 2 cups of tea. "Please sit down." Krell took the offered cup but did not drink. "My homeworld is in the path of this battle. My family, my children, they are all there. If the fighting continues, they will die." Tom nodded slowly. "I'm sorry to hear that. War is hardest on families." "The weapons both sides are using," Krell continued. "They're too powerful, too destructive. This isn't war anymore. It's mutual extinction." "What would you like me to do?" Tom asked. "Help us," Krell said simply. "I know your people have capabilities you haven't shown us. I've seen your merchant ships. They're too well built for simple traders. Your technology is too advanced for a species that claims to be farmers." Tom sipped his tea thoughtfully. "What makes you think that?" "Small things," Krell said. "Your ships never break down. Your people never get sick from alien diseases. Your food grows better than anyone else's, even in hostile environments. You're hiding something." Tom was quiet for a long moment. Through his window, he could see the distant flashes of the battle. Each flash meant ships destroyed and lives lost. "My people have a saying," Tom said finally. "The best way to win a fight is to make sure it never starts." "But the fight has already started," Krell said. "It's been going on for 3 years. Has it?" Tom asked. He walked to his window and looked out at the battle. "Or has it been ending for 3 years and no one noticed?" Deep underground on New Terra, Dr. Lisa Park stood before the largest screen in the facility. Her team worked at stations around her, their faces lit by the glow of advanced instruments. The screen showed the battle in perfect detail, every ship, every weapon, every crew member. "Final phase protocol is ready," Lisa announced. "All ships, all systems, all weapons are now under our influence." Her assistant, Dr. Brown, looked nervous. "Are you sure about this? Once we begin final phase, there's no going back. Both fleets will know someone else is involved." "They're going to destroy each other," Lisa said, "and take half the galaxy with them. We can't let that happen." She touched a control panel. Across the galaxy, every human monitoring station received the same signal. Phase 3 was beginning. Nanar. Space Commander Jake Rivers received the signal on his ship. "You heard the order," he told his crew. "Full intervention. No more subtle effects." The peaceful trader dropped its disguise. Advanced systems that had been hidden for years came online. The simple cargo ship revealed itself to be one of the most sophisticated vessels ever built. "Target all Vorthon weapon systems," Jake ordered. "Disable, don't destroy." Anna's fingers flew over her controls. Invisible beams reached out from the human ship. They found every weakness in Vorthon technology that had been studied for years. Power conduits overloaded, weapon arrays shut down. Navigation systems went offline. "Now the Nexus fleet," Jake said. The same treatment was given to the crystal ships. Their reality disruptors suddenly lost power. Their engines stopped working. Their communication arrays fell silent. Both fleets found themselves drifting helplessly in space. Their weapons were dead. Their engines were cold. Their crews were alive but powerless. Admiral Gorak stared at his dark control panels in shock. "What happened? What did they do to us?" Captain Blue 7 faced the same situation. "All systems are offline. We're completely helpless." Then, on every ship in both fleets, the same message appeared on their emergency screens. It was broadcast. In every language, on every frequency, in a calm, friendly voice. "This is Captain Rivers of the Terran vessel Patience. We're here to help." Through the darkness of space, ships began to appear. Not the warships that both sides expected, but something completely different. Hospital ships with red crosses painted on their hulls, rescue craft with powerful tractor beams, mobile repair stations equipped with the finest medical facilities in the galaxy, dozens of them, then hundreds. They surrounded both fleets like concerned parents gathering around injured children. "Medical teams are standing by," the voice continued. "Rescue operations will begin immediately. Please do not resist. We are here to save lives, not take them." On the council station, Tom finished his tea and stood up. Through his window, he could see the distant flashes of battle had stopped. The shooting was over. "Your family will be safe now," he told Krell. "Both fleets are disabled but not destroyed. Our medical ships will treat the wounded. Our repair ships will fix what can be fixed." Krell stared at him in amazement. "You did this. Your people stopped the most powerful fleets in the galaxy." Tom smiled gently. "We prefer to think of it as helping them stop themselves. They were so busy fighting each other, they never noticed we were taking their weapons apart piece by piece." "For how long?" Krell asked. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the war began," Tom said. "We knew it would end badly if we didn't intervene, so we prepared for the day we might need to step in." He walked to his small plants and gave them a drink of water. "The most dangerous predator in any ecosystem," Tom said, "is often the one that looks harmless until the moment it needs to act." Outside, human ships continued their rescue operations, saving lives from both sides of a war that had just ended without anyone really understanding how. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Every news station, every communication channel, every monitoring station showed the same impossible sight. Two of the most powerful fleets in galactic history sat helpless in space while human ships swarmed around them like helpful insects. The human vessels were nothing like what anyone expected. There were no massive battleships or planet-killing weapons. Instead, there were hospital ships the size of small cities, their white hulls marked with red crosses, repair stations that looked more like floating factories than military vessels, rescue craft that moved with gentle precision between the disabled alien ships. Admiral Gorak floated in his command chair, staring at the screens in disbelief. His mighty iron hammer was completely powerless. No lights, no engines, no weapons. Even the life support was running on backup power. But he was alive, and so was his crew. A soft sound came from his communication system. Somehow the humans had found a way to make it work when everything else was dead. "Admiral Gorak," said a calm voice. "This is Dr. Helen White from the medical ship Mercy. We're detecting wounded personnel on your vessel. May we come aboard to help them?" Gorak's forearms trembled with rage and confusion. You attacked us. You disabled our ship. We prevented you from destroying each other," Dr. White replied gently. "Your crew has 17 injured members and 3 who need immediate surgery. We can have medical teams aboard in 10 minutes. "How do you know that?" Gorak demanded. "How do you know how many wounded we have?" "We've been monitoring your ship's life signs for the past 6 hours, Dr. White said. "We know the exact condition of every person aboard every vessel in both fleets." On the Nexus command ship, Captain Blue 7 faced the same situation. Her beautiful crystal vessel was as dead as a stone, but human voices spoke to her through communication systems that somehow still worked. "Captain Blue 7, said another human voice. "This is Engineer Mark Johnson from the repair ship Fix-It. Your quantum processors took some damage when your reality disruptors overloaded. We can have those repaired in about 4 hours. You know about our quantum processors?" Blue 7 asked, her crystal voice ringing with disbelief. "We've been studying Nexus technology for quite some time," Mark replied. "Beautiful work, by the way. The way you use crystalline matrices to channel quantum energy is really impressive." "Studying? For how long?" "About 15 years, Mark said casually. "Ever since your first trade ships visited our colonies. We're very interested in how other species solve technical problems." Across both fleets, similar conversations were taking place. Human medical teams boarded disabled ships to treat the wounded. Human engineers examined damaged systems and began repairs. Human translators spoke with crew members in their own languages, offering comfort and assistance. What shocked the aliens most was not just the humans' advanced technology, but their incredible knowledge. They knew the name of every ship, every officer, every system. They understood alien biology well enough to perform surgery on species they had supposedly never met. They could repair technology they claimed to have never seen before. On the Galactic Council Station, Tom Blake stood before a hastily assembled emergency session. Every major species in the galaxy had representatives present, either in person or through holographic projection. The chamber buzzed with frightened whispers and confused questions. Tom looked as calm as ever. He wore his simple blue uniform and carried a cup of tea. When he reached the central podium, the chamber fell silent. "I suppose you have questions," Tom said with a gentle smile. Ambassador Krell was the first to speak. "How?" was all he managed to say. "That's a very broad question," Tom replied. "Could you be more specific?" "How did you do it?" Krell shouted, his blue scales flashing with emotion. "How did you disable 2 entire fleets without firing a shot? How do you know so much about our technology? How long have you been lying to us?" Tom sipped his tea thoughtfully. "We haven't been lying. We told you we were farmers and traders. We told you we preferred to wait and see. We told you we wanted peace. All of that was true. But you never told us you could destroy our most powerful weapons," the Vorthan ambassador accused. "You never asked," Tom said simply. "And we didn't destroy anything. Both fleets are intact. All crew members are alive. We just turned things off for a while. A holographic projection flickered to life. It showed Dr. Lisa Park in her underground laboratory on New Terra. Around her, screens displayed detailed information about every alien technology in known space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tom said, "I'd like you to meet Dr. Park. She leads our Galactic Understanding Project." Lisa smiled and waved. "Hello, everyone. I'm sorry we had to meet under these circumstances." "Galactic Understanding Project?" the Crystal Delegate asked. "For the past 20 years, Lisa explained, we've been studying every species, every technology, every culture we could find. Not to conquer or control, but to understand. Knowledge is the most powerful tool in the universe." The screen changed to show a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of small dots were scattered across it, each one marking a human monitoring station disguised as something harmless. "These are our observation posts," Lisa continued. "Research stations that look like farming institutes, trading posts that are actually intelligence centers, survey ships that map more than just star systems. You've been spying on us," the Vorthan ambassador accused. "We've been learning about you," Tom corrected. "There's a difference. Spies steal secrets to gain advantage over enemies. We gathered knowledge to better understand our neighbors." Another image appeared on the screen. It showed the internal structure of a Vorthan battleship, every component labeled and analyzed. "We know exactly how your ships work," Lisa said, "because we've been studying them for 15 years. We know the stress points in your hull designs, the frequency vulnerabilities in your shields, the power fluctuation patterns in your weapons." The image changed to show a Nexus vessel, equally detailed and analyzed. "We understand your reality disruptors better than you do," Lisa continued. "We know how to disable them, redirect them, even improve them. We could make your weapons twice as powerful if we wanted to." "Then why didn't you?" Captain Blue 7 asked through her holographic projection. Tom set down his teacup and looked around the chamber. "Because more powerful weapons don't solve problems. They create bigger problems." "We studied your histories," Lisa added. "Every species follows the same pattern. You develop weapons, fight wars, destroy things, then build even bigger weapons to fight bigger wars. It never ends." "So you decided to end it for us?" Krell asked. "We decided to give you a choice," Tom said. "You could destroy each other with your ultimate weapons, or you could let us help you find a better way." Commander Jake Rivers appeared on the screen, standing on the bridge of his ship. Behind him, displays showed the rescue operations continuing across both fleets. "Right now," Jake said, "we have medical teams on 47 ships treating wounded from both sides. Our engineers are repairing damage to vessels from both fleets. Vorthan doctors are working alongside Nexus scientists in our mobile hospitals. Former enemies are saving each other's lives," Tom added, "because when people stop fighting long enough to help each other, they remember that they're not really enemies at all." The chamber was quiet. On the screens they could see the proof of Tom's words. Vorthan medical officers were helping human doctors treat Nexus casualties. Nexus engineers were sharing their knowledge to help repair Vorthan ships. Species that had been trying to kill each other hours ago were now working together. "Your technology," the Crystal Delegate said slowly, "it's more advanced than anything we have." "In some ways," Tom agreed, "but we learned most of it from you. Vorthan metallurgy helped us develop better materials. Nexus quantum science taught us about reality manipulation. Every species contributed something to our knowledge." "We're not conquerors," Lisa said. "We're students. The galaxy is our university and every species is our teacher." "But you could conquer us," Krell said. "You could rule the galaxy if you wanted to." Tom smiled sadly. "Rule over what? Destroyed worlds? Dead civilizations? Burned libraries and empty schools? What would be the point?" "We prefer gardens to graveyards," Jake added from his ship. "Living things are more interesting than ruins." The alien delegates looked at each other uncertainly. Everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. The simple farmers and peaceful traders were actually the most advanced species in the galaxy, but instead of using their power to dominate, they used it to protect and preserve. "What happens now?" Krell asked. Tom picked up his teacup and finished the last sip. Now we all go home, he said. Both fleets will be fully repaired within the week. No ship will be armed until all sides agree to new peace treaties, and we start building a better galaxy together. And if we refuse? The Vorthan ambassador asked. Tom's smile never wavered, but something in his eyes grew very serious. Then we'll sit quietly and wait for you to change your minds. We're very patient, and we've learned that patience always wins in the end. 6 months later, New Terra looked very different. The rolling green hills were still there, and the peaceful towns still dotted the landscape. But now, strange new buildings stood among the farms and gardens. They were embassies and meeting halls, research centers and cultural exchanges. Ships from dozens of different species landed daily at the small spaceport that had grown into a major hub. Ambassador Tom Blake walked through the gardens behind his new office building. It was early morning, and the dew still sparkled on the grass. In his hand, he carried a watering can filled with fresh water from the nearby stream. His daily routine hadn't changed much, even though he was now the unofficial coordinator of galactic peace. "Good morning, Tom," said a familiar voice. Tom turned to see Ambassador Krell approaching along the garden path. The alien's blue scales looked much brighter than they had 6 months ago. He carried a small potted plant with purple flowers. "Good morning, Krell," Tom said with a smile. "How's your family?" "Safe and well, thanks to you," Krell replied. He held up the plant. "My daughter grew this. She wanted me to give it to you as a thank you gift." Tom accepted the plant with genuine pleasure. "It's beautiful. What's it called?" "Hope Blossom," Krell said. "It only grows after periods of great difficulty. My people believe it represents new beginnings." Tom found a perfect spot for the plant among his other flowers from across the galaxy. In 6 months, his garden had become a living symbol of the new peace. Vorthon fire roses grew next to Nexus crystal trees, delicate singing vines from the outer rim worlds wrapped around sturdy stone fruit trees from the core systems. "Any word from the peace negotiations?" Tom asked as he watered the new addition. "Admiral Gorak and Captain Blue 7 signed the final agreements yesterday," Krell said. "The Vorthan Confederation and Nexus Coalition are officially no longer at war." Tom nodded. It had taken 6 months of careful talks, but the two sides had finally agreed to peace, not because they were forced to, but because they had learned to work together during the rescue operations after the battle. "What about the rebuilding projects?" "Ahead of schedule," Krell said proudly. "The joint Vorthan Nexus teams have restored 17 damaged worlds so far. They're sharing technology and resources like they never fought at all." This was perhaps the most amazing development. The two species that had been trying to destroy each other were now collaborating on massive reconstruction efforts. Fourth-hand strength combined with Nexus technology was proving incredibly effective at repairing war damage. They walked together toward the main embassy building. Through the large windows, they could see delegates from many species working together on various projects. The old council chamber where angry voices once echoed with threats of war had been converted into a peaceful conference center. "Tom," Krell said quietly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Were you ever worried? During the war, when things looked so bad, were you ever afraid that your plan might not work?" Tom considered the question as they climbed the steps to the building. "Fear is natural," he said finally. "But worry is usually just a waste of energy. We prepared for many different possibilities. If one plan didn't work, we had others." "How many others?" Tom smiled. "Dr. Park could give you the exact number, but I think it was around 47 different scenarios." Inside the building, they found Dr. Lisa Park in the main conference room. She stood before a large holographic display showing the galaxy. But instead of the red zones and battle markers that had covered it 6 months ago, the display now showed green trade routes and blue cooperation zones. "Good morning, gentlemen," Lisa said. "Perfect timing. I wanted to show you the latest reports." The display zoomed in on a particular star system. "This is the former battle zone where the fleets met," Lisa explained. "We've converted it into the New Harmony Research Station. Scientists from 12 different species are working together there." What are they researching? Krell asked. Everything, Lisa said with enthusiasm. Vorthan engineers are learning Nexus quantum manipulation. Nexus scientists are studying Vorthan metallurgy, and everyone is learning human patience and planning techniques. The display changed to show another area. This is where the Planet Cracker weapons test site used to be. It's now a nature preserve where we're growing new forests using seeds from 100 different worlds. Tom watched the images with satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for when the war began. Not victory for one side or the other, but transformation of the entire conflict into something productive. Commander Jake Rivers entered the room, looking relaxed and happy. His peaceful trader had become the flagship of the new galactic cooperation fleet, a collection of ships from many species working together on exploration and rescue missions. "Good morning, everyone," Jake said. "I have some interesting news from the Outer Rim." He activated another display. 3 more species have asked to join the cooperation agreements. The Spiral Shell people, the Rock Builders, and the Light Dancers all want to be part of the new galactic community. "Any particular reason?" Tom asked. "Trade benefits, shared technology, and cultural exchange," Jake said. "But mostly they're impressed by how well the former enemies are working together. They want to be part of something positive." This had been happening regularly. Species that had watched the war with fear were now eager to join the peace. The galaxy was discovering that cooperation produced better results than competition. Dr. Park brought up another set of images. The most exciting development is the education exchange program. Young people from different species are studying on each other's worlds. The images showed classrooms where alien children learned alongside human students. Vorthan youngsters practiced patience in human gardens. Nexus youth learned about emotions and art from species they had once considered primitive. "My nephew is studying on a Nexus crystal ship," Krell said proudly. "He's learning quantum mathematics. Last week he called to tell me he's made friends with a young Nexus who wants to become a poet." Tom chuckled. "Poetry and quantum mathematics, an interesting combination." "The Nexus are discovering that logic alone doesn't solve all problems," Lisa added. "And the Vorthans are learning that strength includes knowing when not to fight." Jake pulled up a star chart. "Speaking of strength, we've had some interesting developments in the military sector." The chart showed the positions of various fleets throughout the galaxy. But these weren't battle formations. They were defensive networks designed to protect trade routes and respond to natural disasters. The Vorthan and Nexus have combined their remaining military forces into joint peacekeeping units, Jake explained. They're using their weapons to clear asteroid fields and rescue ships in distress. "What about their ultimate weapons?" Krell asked. "The planet crackers and reality disruptors?" "Converted," Lisa said with a smile. "Planet crackers are now used for large-scale mining operations and terraform projects. Reality disruptors have been modified to clean up space debris and remove dangerous radiation from damaged worlds." Tom walked to the large window that looked out over the gardens and embassy grounds. In the distance, he could see children from many species playing together in the parks. Their parents, former enemies, watched and talked and shared meals. "You know," Tom said, "this is what we always hoped would happen." "Always?" Krell asked. "Even before the war started?" "Especially before the war started," Tom said. "Humans have been preparing for peace much longer than we prepared for war." Dr. Park nodded. "The Galactic Understanding Project wasn't just about studying alien technology. We were studying alien psychology, culture, dreams, and hopes. We wanted to know what would make different species happy to work together." "And what did you learn?" Krell asked. "That everyone wants the same basic things," Jake said. "Safety for their families, prosperity for their communities, and hope for their children's future. The details might be different, but the core desires are the same." Tom turned back to face his friends. "The War of 7 Suns ended not because one side won, but because everyone decided there were better ways to get what they wanted." A soft chime sounded throughout the building. It was the daily call for the community gathering, a tradition that had developed naturally as more species joined the cooperation agreements. Every day at noon, Anyone who wanted to could come together in the main plaza to share news, ideas, or just friendly conversation. Shall we go? Tom asked. They walked together toward the plaza, where hundreds of beings from dozens of species were already gathering. There were no formal speeches or official ceremonies. People simply talked, shared food, and enjoyed each other's company. A young human girl ran up to Tom with a drawing in her hand. "Mr. Tom, Mr. Tom, I made a picture of my new friend." The drawing showed two stick figures holding hands. One was clearly human, the other had the crystal-like appearance of a young nexus. "That's beautiful, Emma," Tom said, kneeling down to look at the picture properly. "What's your friend's name?" "Harmony 7, the girl said proudly. "She taught me how to make light patterns with my hands, and I taught her how to make flower chains." Tom smiled and ruffled the girl's hair. "That sounds like a perfect friendship." As Emma ran back to play, Krell shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, our species were trying to destroy each other. Now our children... The stars had never seemed so close. Captain Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of the ESS Discovery, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade away. Through the large windows, he could see something that no human had ever seen before. The capital world of the Galactic Federation. Nexus Prime hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered in cities that sparkled with lights from 100 different worlds. "Sir, we're getting a message," said Lieutenant Torres from her station. "They're giving us permission to dock." Marcus nodded slowly. After 300 years of looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone was out there, humanity finally had their answer. Not only were they not alone, but they were being invited to join something bigger than they had ever imagined. The year was 2387, and it had taken humanity this long to crack the secret of faster-than-light travel. While Earth's scientists had been working on warp drives and quantum engines, the rest of the galaxy had been talking to each other for thousands of years. "Take us in slowly," Marcus ordered. "And remember, we're representing all of humanity here." The Discovery moved toward the massive space station that orbited Nexus Prime. As they got closer, Marcus could see ships of every shape and size. Some looked like they were made of crystal. Others seemed to glow with their own light. A few appeared to be made of living metal that shifted and changed as he watched. "Captain, look at that one," Torres whispered, pointing to a ship that was at least 10 times the size of their own vessel. It was completely black, except for patterns of blue light that moved across its surface like flowing water. Marcus had read the files. That was probably a Kalari ship. The Kalari were one of the 3 most powerful races in the Federation. They thought as one mind, sharing thoughts across their entire species. The idea made Marcus uncomfortable, but he knew they had to be respectful. The docking process took 2 hours. When it was finally complete, Marcus straightened his uniform and walked to the airlock. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Park, humanity's best xenobiologist, and Commander Jake Stone, their military advisor. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The first thing that hit Marcus was the smell, like flowers and ozone mixed together. The second thing was the sight of the 3 beings waiting for them. The tallest one looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was clear like glass, but with veins of silver light running through it. This had to be one of the Vithani, the oldest race in the Federation. It moved with slow, careful steps, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "Welcome, humans of Earth," it said. "I am Council Member Athan of the Vithani. We have been waiting to meet you." Next to Athan stood something that looked like a person-shaped cloud of golden light. The Luminari were beings of pure energy, and this one flickered and pulsed as it spoke. "I am Radiance of Stars," it said in a voice like music. "The Luminari greet you." The third being was the most surprising. It looked almost human, except for the blue-gray skin and the extra set of arms. Its face was kind, with large dark eyes that seemed to see everything. "And I am Ambassador Kale of the Helix Union," it said with a smile. "Don't worry, we know this is a lot to take in. Your first time meeting other species is always overwhelming. Marcus stepped forward and tried to keep his voice steady. "I'm Captain Marcus Vale of the Earth Space Service. This is Dr. Park and Commander Stone. We're honored to be here." Ethan's crystal body made a soft humming sound. "Your species is young, but that is not unusual. Many races find us when they are ready to join the greater community." "How many races are there?" Dr. Park asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her nervousness. "In the Federation?" "Over 200, Radiance of Stars replied. "Some are ancient, like the Vithani, who have been traveling the stars for 50,000 of your years. Others are newer, like the Helix Union, who joined us only 3,000 years ago." 3,000 years was considered new. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Ambassador Kale seemed to notice his discomfort. "Please don't be intimidated. Everyone starts somewhere. The important thing is that you're here now, and you want to learn." They were led through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in symbols and writing from dozens of different languages. Other beings walked past them, some tall and thin, others short and round, a few that seemed to float rather than walk. "This is incredible," Dr. Park whispered. "The diversity of life forms." "Indeed," Ethan agreed. "The Federation celebrates this diversity. We have learned that different species bring different strengths. The Vithani are good at long-term planning. The Luminari understand energy and physics better than anyone. The Kalari are excellent at organizing and managing complex systems." "What about humans?" Commander Stone asked. "What do we bring?" There was a pause. The three aliens exchanged glances, or what passed for glances among beings so different from each other. "That remains to be seen," Radiance of Stars said finally. "Your species is unique. We have studied your history, your culture, your technology. You are both creative and destructive, peaceful and violent. It is, puzzling." Marcus felt his heart sink. "We've had our problems, yes, but we're trying to be better." "Of course," Kale said quickly. "All species have difficult periods in their development. The important thing is that you've survived them and are here now." They entered a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that showed a map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light marked the worlds of the Federation. Earth was a tiny dot near the edge, recently added to the display. "This is where the Council meets," Ethan explained. "Representatives from all member species gather here to discuss issues that affect the galaxy." "It's beautiful," Dr. Park said, staring up at the star map. "It represents thousands of years of cooperation and peace," Radiance of Stars said with pride. "Wars between species ended long ago. We have learned to settle our differences through discussion and compromise." Marcus felt a weight on his shoulders. Humanity had only recently ended its last major war. The scars were still fresh. The weapons still existed. How could they fit into a galaxy that had achieved such peace? "There is something else," Ethan said, its voice becoming more serious. "The reason your arrival is so timely. We have a problem." The star map changed, zooming in on a section of the galaxy's outer edge. Several points of light were flashing. "Red, the Devourers," Kale said grimly. "Machines left over from an ancient war. For centuries they've been dormant, but recently they've become active again. They're attacking colonies on the rim worlds." "Attacking how?" Commander Stone asked, his military training kicking in. "They consume everything," Radiance of Stars explained. "Ships, stations, even entire planets. They break matter down to its basic components and use it to build more of themselves." "The Federation has been trying to stop them," Ethan continued. "But our response has been slow. We are not used to dealing with threats that require immediate action." Marcus looked at his companions. Stone was already thinking tactically, he could tell. Park was fascinated by the idea of self-replicating machines, and Marcus himself was thinking about what this meant for humanity. "You want our help?" he said. "We would welcome it," Kale admitted. "Your species has experience with warfare that we lack, and your technology, while primitive in some ways, has certain advantages." What kind of advantages? Stone asked. You build things to be tough. Radiance of Stars said. Most Federation technology is elegant, efficient, but fragile. Your ships are built like weapons, even the civilian ones. Your tactics are aggressive. Marcus felt a mix of pride and shame. Humanity's violent history was both their weakness and their strength. We'll need to discuss this with Earth, he said finally. But I think I can speak for my species when I say we want to help. Ethan's crystal body flashed brighter. Good. The Devourers have been quiet for too long. Our scouts report they're massing near the Kepler Nebula. If they break through there, they could threaten the core worlds. As they left the council chamber, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point. Humanity was about to prove itself to the galaxy. He just hoped they were ready for what that might mean. The stars had never seemed so close, but now Marcus wondered if that was a good thing or not. 3 months had passed since humanity joined the fight against the Devourers. Admiral Jack Kane stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance, watching the tactical display with growing frustration. The Federation fleet was moving too slowly again. Sir, the Vithani command ship is requesting another council meeting, reported his communications officer, Ensign Davis. They want to discuss strategy for another 4 hours. Kane rubbed his temples. 4 hours. By the time they finished talking, the Devourers would have consumed another colony. He had tried to explain this to the Federation commanders, but they didn't seem to understand the concept of urgency. Tell them we'll attend, but remind them that people are dying while we debate, Kane said. The human fleet had proven itself in the first few battles. While Federation ships were elegant and powerful, they were designed for exploration and peaceful missions. Human ships built during Earth's Age of Wars were made to fight and survive damage. More importantly, human tactics were unpredictable. Kane remembered the Battle of Proxima Station. The Federation fleet had been arranging itself in perfect formation, following battle plans that were centuries old. Meanwhile, the Devourers had adapted and were flanking them. Kane had broken formation, taking his small squadron of destroyers directly through the enemy line, firing at everything that moved. The Federation commanders had been horrified by his reckless tactics, but it had worked. The Devourers hadn't expected such aggressive behavior and had been caught off guard. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mills from the sensor station, we're getting a distress signal from the Vithani colony ship Crystal Song. They're under attack near the Omega system. Kane's blood went cold. The Crystal Song carried 40,000 Vithani civilians, families who were being evacuated from a border world. If the Devourers got them. Where's the nearest Federation fleet, he asked. 6 hours away at maximum speed, Mills replied. And us? 2 hours, sir. Kane didn't hesitate. Set course for Omega system, maximum speed. Send a message to the Federation fleet. Tell them we're responding to the distress call. Sir, shouldn't we wait for backup? Asked Commander Stone, who had been assigned to Kane's fleet after the first contact mission. The Devourers have at least 20 ships in that area. 20 ships against 40,000 civilians, Kane said grimly. I'll take those odds. The journey to Omega system felt like the longest 2 hours of Kane's life. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, the scene was worse than he had imagined. The Crystal Song was surrounded by Devourer ships, dark, angular machines that were already extending tentacles toward the colony vessel. They're trying to board, Mills reported. The Crystal Song's shields are down to 30%. Kane studied the tactical display. His fleet had 12 ships against 20 Devourers. Normally that would be suicide. But Kane had something the Devourers didn't expect. Humanity's newest weapon. Dr. Elena Ross had called it the Rift Generator, a device that could create small tears in space-time. It was experimental, dangerous, and completely untested in actual combat. The scientists back on Earth weren't even sure it was safe to use, but 40,000 lives were hanging in the balance. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Kane ordered. Focus fire on the Devourers closest to the colony ship, and prepare the Rift Generator. Sir, the weapon isn't ready for field testing, protested Chief Engineer Roberts over the comm. The power requirements alone could overload our systems. Then we better make sure it works the first time, Kane replied. The human fleet charged into battle with a ferocity that surprised even Kane. His crews fought like they were defending Earth itself. The Vengeance's railguns tore through Devourer hulls while the destroyer squadrons darted between the enemy ships firing at point-blank range. But it wasn't enough. For every Devourer they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. And the Crystal Song's shields were failing. "Admiral, the colony ship won't last another 10 minutes, Mills called out. Kane made his decision. Activate the rift generator. Target the center of the Devourer formation. Sir, the colony ship is too close, Roberts warned. The spatial distortion could affect them too. It's their only chance, Kane said. Do it. The rift generator powered up with a sound like reality tearing apart. Space itself seemed to bend around the Vengeance as energy built up in the weapon's core. Kane could feel the ship shaking as the generator drew power from every system. Firing! Roberts shouted. What happened next would be talked about for generations, though most of those who witnessed it would try to forget. A ball of twisted space-time erupted from the Vengeance and expanded rapidly. Where it touched the Devourer ships, they simply stopped existing, not destroyed, but erased from reality itself. The effect spread outward like a wave, consuming the entire enemy formation in seconds. But the wave didn't stop there. The edge of the spatial distortion clipped the Crystal Song's quantum matrix, the delicate system that allowed Vithani consciousness to exist in their crystal bodies. Kane watched in horror as the colony ship's lights began to flicker and dim. Oh no, he whispered. The Crystal Song sent one final message before going dark. What have you done to us? Kane's victory had become a disaster. The rift generator had worked perfectly, too perfectly. The spatial distortion had not only destroyed the Devourer fleet, but had also damaged the very thing that kept the Vithani alive. Get us to that colony ship now, Kane ordered. But it was too late. When the human rescue teams boarded the Crystal Song, they found 40,000 crystal bodies that no longer glowed with life. The Vithani consciousness, which existed as patterns of light and energy within their crystalline forms, had been disrupted by the space-time distortion. They were all dead. Kane stood in the Crystal Song's main corridor, surrounded by the dim crystal forms of what had once been living beings. Children, adults, elders, all victims of his decision to use an untested weapon. Sir, Commander Stone said quietly, you saved them from the Devourers. No, Kane replied, his voice hollow. I killed them myself. The news spread through the Federation faster than hyperspace travel. The humans had used some kind of superweapon that could erase matter from existence. Worse, they had used it so close to a civilian vessel that it had killed everyone aboard. When Kane tried to explain what had happened to the Federation Council, they listened with growing horror and suspicion. You deployed an experimental weapon, without authorization, Council Member Athan said, its crystal body dimming with what Kane was learning to recognize as anger. A weapon that manipulates space-time itself. We were trying to save lives, Kane protested. The Devourers would have killed everyone anyway, would they? Asked Radiance of Stars, its golden light flickering. Or would they have simply consumed the ship? The Vithani consciousness might have survived in backup crystals. Now we will never know. Ambassador Kale looked tired and older than when Kane first met him. Admiral, we understand that you meant well, but this incident raises serious questions about human weapons and tactics. What kind of questions? Kane asked, though he dreaded the answer. Your species has been at war for most of your recorded history, Athan said. You have weapons that can destroy planets, biological agents that can kill entire populations, and now devices that can tear apart reality itself. The Council is concerned. Kane felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying we're not welcome in the Federation? We're saying that we need to understand what we're dealing with, Radiance of Stars replied. Your military technology is far more advanced than we realized, and your willingness to use it is troubling. In the weeks that followed, Kane noticed changes in how the Federation treated human forces. Their ships were no longer invited to joint planning sessions. Human officers were excluded from sensitive briefings. And there were always Federation observers aboard human vessels now. The other species whispered when humans walked by. Kane heard fragments of conversations, words like dangerous and unpredictable and weapons of mass destruction. Back on Earth, Dr. Ross was proud of the Rift generator's success in combat. It worked perfectly, Admiral. We can refine the Sorai design, make it more precise. Kane looked at the data from the Crystal Song incident. 40,000 deaths from a weapon meant to save lives. No, he said finally. Seal the research. I never want to see that weapon used again. But it was too late. The Federation had already seen what humans were capable of, and in the deepest levels of the council chambers, 3 species were meeting in secret. The Vitani, still mourning their dead. The Kalari, calculating the threat humanity posed to galactic stability. The Luminari, analyzing human weapons technology, with growing alarm. They're too dangerous, one of them said. Their potential for destruction is unlimited, said another. Something must be done, concluded the third. Admiral Kane never learned about that secret meeting. He was too busy trying to figure out why Federation ships were starting to follow human vessels, always staying just out of sensor range, always watching. The war against the Devourers continued, but now there was a new tension in the galaxy. And at the center of it all was humanity, the species that had come to help, but had instead become something the galaxy feared. The tragedy of the Crystal Song had changed everything. What start? Captain Marcus Vale received the invitation on a Tuesday morning. The message was formal and elegant, written in the flowery language the Federation Council preferred. They wanted to honor humanity's service in the war against the Devourers with a special ceremony at the Kepler Nebula, a fleet review, Vale read aloud to his staff, to celebrate the brave humans who have fought alongside our Federation forces. Commander Stone looked up from his datapad. Sounds nice, sir. When was the last time anyone threw us a party? Vale smiled, but something felt wrong. In the 6 months since the Crystal Song incident, relations with the Federation had grown cold. Human ships were watched constantly. Human officers were excluded from important meetings. And now, suddenly, they wanted to throw a celebration? Sir, Lieutenant Torres said from her station, Earth Command is ordering all available ships to attend. They're calling it a mandatory show of unity. Vale's unease grew stronger. All available ships? That would leave Earth's defenses very thin. How many ships are we talking about? He asked. Torres checked her screen. 500 vessels, sir. Every major warship in the human fleet. 500 ships, nearly the entire Earth Space Navy, all gathering in one place, far from home. What about the Devourer threat? Stone asked. Are we just abandoning the front lines? According to this, Torres said, reading from her screen, the Federation believes the Devourer menace has been contained. They want to honor our contribution before reassigning us to peaceful exploration duties. Vale felt his stomach drop. Peaceful exploration. That was Federation speak for, we don't want you fighting anymore. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the Kepler Nebula. It was a beautiful sight. Clouds of gas and dust painted in colors of red, blue, and gold, lit by the stars within. Perfect for a ceremony, Vale thought. Also perfect for an ambush. The human ships arranged themselves in formation as requested. Admiral Kane's flagship, the Vengeance, took the center position. Around it spread destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels, the pride of humanity's space navy. Sir, Torres called out, I'm reading a lot of ships on the other side of the nebula. Federation vessels. How many? Vale asked. I'm not sure, sir. The nebula is interfering with our sensors, but it looks like thousands. Vale's blood went cold. Thousands? Before Torres could answer, space around them began to shimmer. Ships appeared out of nowhere. Vithani crystal vessels, Kalari hive ships, and Luminari energy cruisers. They were using some kind of cloaking, technology humanity had never seen before. Within minutes, the human fleet was completely surrounded. "This is Admiral Kane to all Federation vessels," came Kane's voice over the comm. "Please explain your positions. Are we under attack?" The response came from Council Member Ethan aboard the massive Vithani flagship Eternal Light. Its voice, transmitted across all frequencies, was cold as ice. "Admiral Kane, Captain Vale, officers of the human fleet, you are not under attack. You are under arrest." Vale's bridge fell silent. In the distance he could see the shapes of Federation ships, more than he had ever seen in one place. There had to be 10,000 of them, maybe more. "Arrest?" Kane's voice crackled with confusion and anger. "On what charges?" "The charges are simple," came another voice, radiance of stars speaking for the Luminari. "Possession of weapons of mass destruction, threat to galactic peace, and the murder of 40,000 Vithani civilians." "That was an accident," Kane protested. "We were trying to save them." "Were you?" This voice belonged to Prime Mind 7, the Kalari representative. "Or were you testing your new weapon on a civilian target? Our analysis suggests the latter." Vale couldn't believe what he was hearing. They thought the Crystal Song incident was intentional, that humans had deliberately murdered civilians. "You will surrender your vessels immediately," Ethan continued. "Your crews will be transported to a secure facility where you will be re-educated. Your weapons will be destroyed and your species will be relocated to a world where you can do no harm." "Relocated?" Vale found his voice. "You mean imprisoned?" "We prefer the term protected supervision," Prime Mind 7 replied. "The galaxy has seen what humans are capable of. Your history of violence, your weapons of mass destruction, your willingness to use them on innocents. You cannot be allowed to threaten the peace we have built." Vale looked at his tactical display. The Federation had positioned their ships perfectly. The humans were trapped in the center of the nebula with no way out. 10,000 ships against 500. It should have been hopeless. But Vale knew something the Federation didn't understand about humans. When trapped, when faced with impossible odds, when given the choice between slavery and death, humans would always choose to fight. "Admiral Kane," Vale said into his comm, "what are your orders?" There was a long pause. Then Kane's voice came back, steady and determined. "All ships, this is Admiral Kane. We did not come to this galaxy to be slaves. We came as friends, as allies, as protectors of the innocent. If the Federation wants to treat us as criminals, then they will learn what human criminals can do. Also, ships attack pattern Alpha. Make them remember us." The Battle of Kepler Nebula began with the humans doing something no Federation tactician had ever seen before. Instead of trying to break out of the trap, they attacked inward, ramming themselves deeper into the enemy formation. Vale watched as the destroyer ESS Lightning crashed directly into a Kalari hive ship, its captain choosing to sacrifice his vessel rather than surrender. The explosion took out 3 more Federation ships. "Sir," Torres called out, "the Admiral is ordering all ships with critical damage to ram the nearest enemy vessel." Vale understood. They couldn't win this battle, but they could make it cost the Federation dearly. Human ships, already damaged by enemy fire, turned themselves into guided missiles, crashing into Federation vessels at full speed. The ESS Discovery rammed a Vithani crystal ship, its hull breaking apart as it smashed through the alien vessel's elegant structure. The ESS Courage took out 2 Luminary energy cruisers before being destroyed. The ESS Freedom, its engines failing, crashed into a Federation command ship and detonated its entire weapons magazine. But the Federation had numbers. For every human ship that fought and died, 20 Federation vessels remained. The battle was hopeless from the start. Vale's own ship, the ESS Unity, was taking heavy damage. His shields were down, his weapons were failing, and half his crew was dead or injured, sir, Torres said, blood running down her face from a head wound. "Our engines are critical. We won't last much longer." Vale looked at the tactical display. Only a dozen human ships were still fighting. The rest were debris floating in the nebula, their crews dead or captured. "Torres," he said quietly, "can you get a message to Earth?" "I can try, sir." Vale thought about what to say. How do you tell an entire planet that its fleet has been destroyed? How do you warn them that the galaxy they wanted to join was now their enemy? Send this, he said. Earth Command, this is Captain Vale. The Federation has betrayed us. They have destroyed our fleet and plan to invade Earth. Prepare for war. Tell our people that we died fighting for freedom, not for conquest. Tell them to remember us and tell them to make the galaxy remember us too. The message was sent just as a Vithani energy beam tore through the Unity's hull. Vale felt the ship breaking apart around him, felt the air rushing out through the breach. His last thought was of Earth, of his wife and daughter, and of what was coming. Only 12 human ships escaped the trap at Kepler Nebula, 12 ships out of 500. But those 12 carried a message that would change everything. The Federation thought they had won a great victory. They had eliminated the human threat before it could grow larger. They had prevented another species from bringing violence to their peaceful galaxy. What they didn't understand was that they had just declared war on the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known. A species that, when pushed to the edge, would push back with everything they had. The survivors who made it back to Earth told their story. They spoke of betrayal, of friends dying in the cold of space, of a galaxy that smiled while preparing a knife for humanity's back. Earth's response was swift and terrible. If the Federation wanted to see what humans were really capable of, they would get their wish. The war that followed would make the Battle of Kepler Nebula look like a small disagreement between neighbors. The Federation had started something they didn't understand. And before it was over, the galaxy itself would weep for what they had unleashed. The age of peace was ending. The age of war had begun, and at the center of it all was humanity. No longer the hopeful species that had dreamed of joining the stars, but something darker, angrier, and far more dangerous. The galaxy had made its choice at Kepler Nebula. Now it would live with the consequences. Dr. Elena Ross had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, her hands shaking from too much coffee, but she couldn't stop working. Outside her laboratory on Luna Base, she could see the construction yards where humanity was building ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Doctor, her assistant Tom called out, the prototype is ready for testing. Elena looked at the device on the table before her. It was small, no bigger than a briefcase, but it contained enough destructive power to cripple an entire star system. She had called it the silence weapon, though the official military designation was much longer and more boring. Are you sure? About the range calculations, she asked. Triple-checked, ma'am. One device can disrupt quantum entanglement networks across a 50 light-year radius. The Federation won't be able to communicate or coordinate their fleets. Elena nodded grimly. Communication was everything in space warfare. Cut that, and even the largest fleet became a collection of isolated ships, easy to pick off one by one. It had been 18 months since Kepler Nebula, 18 months since the Federation had shown their true face. In that time, humanity had transformed from a peaceful species seeking friendship into something the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization completely dedicated to war. Every human colony was now a fortress. Every civilian ship had been converted or scrapped for military use. Children as young as 12 were being trained in combat tactics. The entire species had one goal: survival through victory. Dr. Ross to the bridge, came the announcement over the base's speakers. Priority 1. Elena made her way to the command center where Admiral Lisa Park, the former xenobiologist who had become one of Earth's top military commanders, was studying holographic displays of Federation fleet movements. Elena, thank you. God, you're here, Park said. We just lost contact with the Beijing and the Mumbai. The Federation found our secret base in the Centauri system. Elena felt a chill. Those weren't just ships. They were mobile research facilities, each carrying hundreds of scientists and their families. Survivors? None, Park said quietly. The Federation isn't taking prisoners anymore. They learned that lesson at Kepler. The war had been brutal from the beginning, but it had grown worse as both sides realized what was at stake. The Federation fought to preserve their peaceful galaxy. Humanity fought for the right to exist. Show me the tactical situation, Elena said. The holographic display showed the galaxy divided into zones of control. Blue areas belonged to the Federation, still the vast majority of inhabited space. Red areas were human-controlled, a scattered collection of systems connected by hidden supply routes, and between them lay the gray zones, systems too damaged by fighting to support life. "We're losing," Park admitted. "They have the numbers, the resources, the industrial capacity. For every ship we build, they build 10. But we have advantages. They don't," Elena replied, thinking of the weapon designs hidden in her encrypted files. "We fight differently." That was the understatement of the century. Human tactics had evolved far beyond anything the Federation could understand. While they still fought like civilized beings, following rules of engagement that had governed galactic warfare for millennia, humans fought like the survival of their species depended on it. Because it did. Human ships used biological weapons that adapted to multiple alien physiologies. They deployed quantum viruses that could corrupt AI systems from across a star system. They had turned asteroids into guided missiles and space stations into bombs. And now, Elena had created something that would change the war completely. "When do we deploy the silence weapon?" she asked. "Tomorrow," Park replied. "The Federation is massing their fleets for a final push on Earth. They want to end this war quickly, before we can develop anything worse." Elena almost laughed. Worse? They had no idea. The next day, a single human stealth ship slipped through Federation lines and reached the center of their communication network, a massive space station called the Great Voice that coordinated all Federation military activities. The ship never fired a shot. It simply activated the silence weapon and vanished back into hyperspace. Within hours, the effect became clear. Federation fleets across the galaxy found themselves cut off from each other. Commanders who had relied on instant communication for thousands of years were suddenly operating blind. Admiral Kane, now commanding the human resistance from a hidden base in the Outer Rim, launched his counterattack immediately. Human fleets struck at isolated Federation groups using hit-and-run tactics that had been impossible when the enemy could coordinate their response. "It's working," Kane reported to Earth Command. "We've destroyed 3 Federation supply convoys and 2 major battle groups. They can't coordinate their defenses." But the Federation's response was swift and terrible. Council member Athan stood before the emergency session of the Federation Council, its crystal body dim with rage. "The humans have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. They have attacked the very foundation of our civilization, our ability to communicate across the stars." "The situation is worse than you know," added Prime Mind 7. "Our analysis shows that the quantum disruption is spreading. Systems that were not directly affected are now losing communication as well. The humans have created a weapon that attacks the structure of space-time itself." Radiance of stars flickered with dangerous energy. "Then we must respond in kind. No more limited warfare. No more mercy. The humans want to destroy our civilization? Then we will destroy theirs completely." The Federation's retaliation came 3 weeks later. Elena was in her lab when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the observation deck and looked out at Earth, that beautiful blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years. The sun was getting brighter. "No," she whispered, understanding immediately what she was seeing. The Federation had done something to Sul, Earth's sun. They had destabilized its nuclear fusion process, turning it into a weapon against the planet it had warmed for billions of years. "All stations, this is Earth Command," came the emergency broadcast. "Solar instability detected. Massive solar flare incoming. All orbital facilities begin immediate evacuation procedures." But it was worse than a solar flare. Elena watched in horror as the sun began to expand, its outer layers becoming unstable. The Federation had turned Earth's own star into a supernova. "How long do we have?" she asked the computer. "Based on current expansion rate, solar explosion will occur in 6 hours, 14 minutes. 6 hours to evacuate a planet of 8 billion people." Elena ran back to her lab, her mind racing. The evacuation ships couldn't carry everyone. Millions would die when the sun exploded. But maybe, just maybe, she could give them something to remember humanity by. She activated her personal computer and began uploading every weapons design, every tactical manual, every piece of military technology that humanity had developed during the war. But she didn't send it to the evacuation fleets. She sent it to the human resistance bases scattered across the galaxy, along with a simple message: make them pay. The destruction of Earth was visible from 1,000 light-years away. The supernova that had once been Sol tore through space, creating a gravitational anomaly that pulled in nearby star systems. The Centauri system was consumed first, then Wolf 359, then Barnard's star. By the time the expanding destruction field finally stabilized, it had consumed 12 star systems and killed over 50 billion beings, human and alien alike. The Federation Council met in emergency session, staring at the readings from their long-range sensors. "What have we done?" whispered Ambassador Kale, his blue-gray skin pale with shock. "We have ended the human threat," Ethan replied, but its crystal body was dim with something that might have been regret. "Have we?" Prime Mind 7 asked. "Our reports show human resistance cells are still active in over 200 systems, and now they have nothing left to lose." Radiance of Stars finished. The war that followed the destruction of Earth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human forces, no longer constrained by the need to protect their homeworld, unleashed weapons and tactics that defied every law of civilized warfare. They used viral weapons that could reprogram matter at the molecular level, turning entire planets into toxic wasteland. They deployed quantum mines that could destroy ships by erasing them from multiple dimensions simultaneously. They created artificial black holes and threw them at Federation worlds. Admiral Kane, leading the largest human fleet from his mobile command base, sent a message to every Federation world. "You killed our home. You murdered our families. You wanted to see what humans were capable of when we had nothing left to lose. Now you know. This war ends when your species are extinct, or when ours is. There will be no peace. There will be no mercy. There will be no surrender." The galaxy burned, trade routes were cut by quantum minefields. Communication networks remained shattered by silence weapons. Entire sectors fell into chaos as local governments collapsed without central coordination. Species that had been allies for millennia turned on each other, blaming one another for the catastrophe that humanity's extinction had brought upon them all. The Vithani accused the Kolari of pushing too hard for war. The Kolari blamed the Luminari for providing the technology. Zarathel was young, only 23 years old, when she found the crystal. She belonged to a species called the Nexari, who had evolved in the ruins of the old galaxy. Her people had grown up among the dead worlds and broken stars, never knowing what had caused such devastation. The crystal was hidden deep in the ruins of what her archaeology textbooks called Nexus Prime, the ancient capital of some long-forgotten civilization. Most of the massive space station had been destroyed in whatever catastrophe had befallen the galaxy 300 years ago, but small sections still drifted through space, preserved by their own gravity fields. "Professor Chen," she called to her supervisor over the comm. "I found something in Section 7. It looks like a data storage device." Professor Chen floated over to her position, his environmental suit making soft humming sounds in the vacuum. "Careful, Zara. Most of the technology from the old time is too damaged to work properly. But this crystal was different. It was perfectly preserved, glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. When Zara touched it with her scanner, holographic text appeared in the air. Words in a language her translation software couldn't recognize. "Can you read any of this?" she asked. Professor Chen studied the symbols floating before them. "Some of it. This appears to be a personal message. The timestamp shows it was recorded during the final war period." The final war. That's what historians called the mysterious conflict that had torn the galaxy apart 3 centuries ago. No one knew who had fought it, or why, or even how it had ended. All they knew was that when it was over, most of the galaxy's advanced civilizations had simply vanished. "Should we take it back to the university?" Zara asked. "Definitely. This could be the first intact record from that period we've ever found." Back on New Haven University, the archaeology department's best linguists worked for weeks to decode the crystal's contents. The language was completely unknown, but there were mathematical constants and star charts that helped them understand the basic structure. When they finally broke the code, Professor Chen called Zara to his office immediately. "Sit down," he said, his face pale. "What we found, it changes everything we thought we knew about the final war." The crystal contained the personal log of someone named Captain Marcus Vale. The recording was damaged, with large sections corrupted or missing, but what remained told an incredible story. "We came to the stars seeking friends," the recording began. "We called ourselves humans, and we thought the galaxy would welcome us. We were wrong. Humans." Zara had never heard of such a species. Neither had any of her professors. The log spoke of a war between these humans and something called the Federation, an alliance of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. According to the recording, the humans had been betrayed and hunted almost to extinction. "They surrounded us at a place called Kepler Nebula," Vale's voice continued. 500 of our ships against 10,000 of theirs. They called us criminals, said we were too dangerous to live free. Most of us died that day, but some escaped to warn Earth. The crystal's data banks contained star charts showing the location of this world, coordinates that matched a dead solar system in what was now called the Forbidden Zone. No one was allowed to travel there because of the massive gravitational anomalies and radiation fields. "Professor," Zara said quietly, "are you saying the final war was fought between humans and everyone else?" Professor Chen nodded. "That's what it looks like. And according to this, the humans lost. But the more they studied the crystal, the more questions arose. If the humans had lost the war, why was the entire galaxy still in ruins? Why had all the other species disappeared too? The crystal's final entry, recorded by Captain Vale just before his death, provided some answers. "Earth is gone. They turned our sun into a weapon and destroyed our homeworld. Billions of our people are dead. The survivors have scattered across the galaxy, and I fear what they will do now. We were never the monsters the Federation claimed we were, but this war has changed us. We have become something terrible, something that fights without mercy or hope. The galaxy wanted to see what humans were capable of. Now they know. God help us all." 3 months later, Zara was part of a research expedition to the Forbidden Zone. Despite the dangers, the university had to know more about these mysterious humans and what had happened to them. The dead solar system was even worse than the reports suggested. Where planets should have been, there were only asteroid fields of fused glass and metal. The star itself was gone, replaced by a white dwarf surrounded by expanding clouds of plasma that still carried radiation levels lethal to most known life forms. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Martinez, the expedition's physicist. "You can't just destroy a star. The energy requirements alone would be beyond anything we understand," Professor Chen finished. "But somehow they did it. They found more ruins as they explored the system. Space stations twisted into impossible shapes by gravitational forces, the remains of ships scattered across millions of kilometers, and everywhere the same strange energy signatures that their instruments couldn't identify. But the most disturbing discovery came when they reached the third planet's orbital position. There, floating in space, was a massive structure that defied explanation. It looked like a cross between a space station and a monument, its dark hull covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "I'm reading massive data storage capabilities," reported Dr. Martinez. "This thing is like a giant computer." "Or a library," Professor Chen said quietly. They docked with the structure carefully, not knowing what they might find inside. The corridors were filled with a strange, breathable atmosphere that their sensors said was safe, but felt wrong somehow. The walls were covered in writing, the same symbols they had seen on Marcus Vale's crystal. In the center of the structure, they found what could only be described as the galaxy's largest archive. Millions of data crystals lined the walls, each one containing records, histories, and personal accounts from the final war. "My God," whispered Dr. Martinez. "This is everything. Every battle, every casualty, every moment of the war." Zara picked up one of the crystals at random and activated it. A holographic figure appeared, a woman in a military uniform, her face exhausted and scarred. "This is Admiral Park, commanding the Human Resistance Fleet," the recording began. "We've just received confirmation that the Federation Council has authorized the use of stellar destruction weapons against all human colonies. They're not just trying to defeat us anymore. They're trying to erase us completely." Another crystal showed a different scene. Federation commanders arguing in what looked like a council chamber. One of them, a being made of living crystal, was speaking. "The human contamination must be purged completely. Their very existence threatens the natural order. We should have destroyed them when we first detected their violent nature." Crystal after crystal told the same story from different perspectives. The war had started as a misunderstanding, escalated through fear and prejudice, and finally became a campaign of mutual extinction. They were trying to wipe each other out, Zara realized. Not just defeat, complete annihilation. Professor Chen was studying a crystal that contained Federation records. According to this, the war lasted 7 years total. By the end, over 60% of the galaxy's inhabited worlds had been destroyed or abandoned. "What happened to the survivors?" Dr. Martinez asked. The answer came from one of the final recordings, made by a Federation Council member in the last days of the human resistance has been eliminated. The last of their fleets was destroyed at the Battle of Andromeda Gate. But the cost has been too great. Our civilization is in ruins. Half our member species are extinct. The rest blame each other for this catastrophe. The Federation is dissolving, and we are too few and too scattered to rebuild." But the recording continued. "We have made a decision. The memory of this war is too painful, too damaging to the survivors. We will implement the Great Forgetting, a galaxy-wide memory modification that will erase all records of the humans and the war they brought us. Future generations will know only that there was a time of darkness, a plague of madness that swept across the stars. They will not know about the species that called themselves human, or the choices that led us all to destruction." Zara felt cold. They erased their own history? "Not just erased," Professor Chen said, reading further. "They rewrote it, made it seem like the destruction was caused by some kind of natural disaster or unknown plague. Every database, every record, every memory was altered. Except this place," Dr. Martinez pointed out. "Except this place," Professor Chen agreed. "Someone built this archive in secret, hidden in the ruins of the human homeworld. Someone wanted the truth to survive. They found the builder's identity in the archive's central core. It was a joint project between the last human survivors and a small group of Federation scientists who had opposed the Great Forgetting. Working together in the final days of the war, they had created this monument to truth. The final message was recorded by someone named Dr. Elena Ross. "We were not monsters when we came to the stars. We were explorers, dreamers, beings who wanted to be part of something greater, the